Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. On this week's show, we are going to recap some of the matches that happened at Pit Submission 4, all the grappling matches on that card, talk a little about Midwest finishers, and talk about a little bit of news. We are also going to preview BJJ Stars, the upcoming middleweight tournament. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, to my co-host,
Miranda.
How you doing, Miranda?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. BJJ Stars, what's the number of BJJ Stars this time? This is BJJ Stars 12 at this point. Yeah, I always get them and BJJ Bet mixed up because it's a very, very similar collection of athletes and tournament rules. So that's what we're doing on this week's show. Let's move into a little bit of news. Big news for ADCC. We have two people that we kind of knew were going to get announced for ADCC, actually getting announced this week for ADCC. We saw PJ Barch getting an invite at under 77 kilograms. We've been really, really excited about Barch for, years now, a while now. Yeah. But he had an incredible run at ADCC 2023. He beat PJ Barch in his second match. Sorry, not PJ. He beat JT Torres in his second match.
He beat himself.
Yeah, and took JT, the two-time returning champion, out of that tournament, and then had a really close match with Cade Bertolo, the champion, who would be the champion at under 77 kilograms. Yeah. He was actually leading and beating Cade on points until Cade submitted him. So, absolutely excited to see PJ Barch. I think he got knocked out before the round. I think he was fourth. Or no, not fourth. He got knocked out before the round for fourth place, but put on an incredible performance in ADCC 2022. So we are very happy to see him back in ADCC. We were kind of suspecting that he was going to get an invite because we didn't see him at trials, and Barch has historically been a guy that does trials, again, as every athlete that wants to get an ADCC does. So that's been good. Also, did we talk about Jimenez last week? Jimenez got announced too, didn't he?
Yeah, but I think we talked to that because that was on the same
ago.
Week that everything got announced all at one time. Because he got announced bigger than, didn't get like under 99.
Oh, yeah, he went up in weight. I remember that now.
But then I think we know that he's that size. We always think he's smaller than he actually is.
We've been covering Jimenez since he was, I think we knew about him earlier, but we started covering Roberto Jimenez when he was a brown belt. Because he had all those wars with Pedro Mourinho at purple belt and at brown belt after Mourinho had won the Psi qualifier, and kind of Pedro Mourinho got on a radar as a purple belt down there in Texas, and those two guys went back and forth, and they were both in the level. They were both featured on Third Coast Grappling a bunch, and we were familiar with them. And back then, Roberto was like way, way smaller. Yeah. He was literally he was still a juvenile then, maybe.
Probably.
And like he was at 40. We knew about him at like
he's like barely
45.
I think he's barely 21 years old now.
Yeah, and then we watched him go from
older.
45 to 55 to 70 to now he's up above 200 pounds. But we've covered him way, way smaller over the last couple of years. Again, he wins trials at under 77 kilos, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Or so 2.5 years ago. So, yeah, they think it's reasonable to us to kind of move his weight around in our heads because he's completed at such a gambit of weight classes. So
but he also,
he's there as well.
But also at IBJJF, he goes up to like super heavy.
He was an absolute.
Yeah, an absolute.
He just won absolute like a couple of months ago. So, so Barch is in, Roberto Jimenez is in. Also, another guy we knew was going to get in was Dante Leon. Dante Leon returning as well to the 77 weight class, under 77 kilogram weight class. Love seeing Dante Leon. Super excited for Dante Leon. Been a staple at ADCC. Again, another guy that we knew was going to get was on the short list for invites. Yeah. Probably going to get an invite due to his placing at the previous ADCC. I always get Dante's place messed up.
We also didn't know exactly where he would land at. Because he'll do whatever weight class
he's
you
been
ask him
bouncing
to.
up around, but recently he had that match to Pato, where Pato took his 155 championship at Who's Number One. But so we were kind of curious because Dante's been up to super heavy. He's beaten like Devontae Johnson. We've seen him bounce around. We assumed that he was going to kind of come back to 77 under 77 kilograms, but we weren't sure, and so this kind of confirms it that him and Barch are both at under 77 kilograms. I think we almost have that entire division aside from the trials winner for Asian and Oceanic trials. That's like the last one. We may have one more slot at 77, but I think we now have the full gambit of that division. And so again, we're only it's April now, May, June, July, August. We're only 4 months away from the World Championships. So those, we very much have a good understanding of who is in all of the divisions, aside from a couple of the women's divisions. We're still waiting on a number of announcements for those weight classes, but overall, pretty good turnout. I'm very, very excited. We're still I think Craig Jones is still up in the air.
Yeah.
Seems like he's doing a big seminar to pay all the guys that get beat day one. But with Craig Jones, you never kind of know. We're going to talk about his match in a minute here. Coming up on Pit Submissions 4 that was on Karate Combat.
Yeah.
But it's cool. It's cool to have more and more of the divisions. I finally booked the remainder of the trip out to Vegas for the Grappling Reround for me and my wife. So now we are fully, we have tickets, we have flights, we have hotels, we are good to go for Vegas. And I'm super excited.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be a fun time.
It will be a great time. Do we have any other news going on?
I don't think so.
It's been a pretty quiet week overall.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything. Also, didn't hear anybody got popped at Pans, which is good.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
I didn't hear anything, which I don't know what that means, but...
Well, usually there's a bit of a delay. I think when everyone ran, it was a little quicker, but isn't it usually 3 or 4 months before we hear? It's usually it's some time before, because they have to process it, they have to notify the athletes, they have to determine if they're going to give a statement or work with them and then figure out what their suspension is. And then once that's all ironed out, then they go through. Yeah. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see who gets popped, because I would be pretty astonished if no one got popped. But
especially because it was the first time they've ever done Pans, so it means people weren't really preparing for it unless they knew ahead of time that it was going to happen.
And a lot of those top camps get the information ahead of time.
Yeah, but for gi, I mean,
for no gi, for gi.
Well, but it was a gi tournament. It was Pans.
Yeah, Pans gi.
Yeah, but I mean, for Pan, I don't know. I find gi guys have tendency to take a little extra because they need to
take a little extra.
Take a little extra.
Get on that top level. So I got another news, Miranda. Let's move on to Pit Submission 4.
Okay.
I want to start with Craig Jones on this one.
Okay.
We had Craig Jones versus Rinat. I'm not going to pronounce his last name because they heard him on the broadcast, but I keep butchering it. We're going to go with Rinat. This was an interesting match.
Yeah.
With really Craig Jones dominating from bell to bell and then to bell again.
Yeah.
Essentially. We saw we didn't really see Craig stand with Rinat for too long, which makes sense. Rinat's a pretty good Russian wrestler, fights in the UFC.
Yeah, why would you do that?
Yeah, he stood for a little bit, but it seemed like Craig Jones was pretty confident to pull guard. He forced Rinat to play into his guard. It was nice to see Rinat sort of engaging in the guard, but very much didn't seem to be able to put up any close passing attempts. Craig Jones did a really good job fencing him with a knee shield. And numerous times we saw in this match, Craig Jones actually looked for a buggy choke when Rinat would go to body lock pass.
But he was doing his buggy choke from full guard, which is a different buggy choke than we generally see.
Yeah, it's not even really it is not even really like a buggy choke. It's sort of...
It's like a head and arm triangle.
It's like a head and arm triangle, but with the pressure of your shin across their back to pull them in, and you do, it's almost much more like a triangle choke. And if you don't remember, because you have been watching jiu-jitsu for many, many years, Craig Jones, we talk about it occasionally on the show, at purple belt and at brown belt, and even early black, was primarily like a triangle guy.
Yeah.
Before he was really known as that really dangerous dynamic leg blocker, he was known as like a flying triangle, and he has a really crafty triangle game. Actually, I have one of Craig Jones' early instructionals, which is a triangle instruction.
Oh, really?
And it's really, really neat to hear him talk about triangles.
It's crazy to see when he tries a bunch of other stuff, and then he always goes back to the triangle at the end. Because he's done that in a couple of his more recent matches.
I mean, I think the triangle over Murillo at ADC... Wait, was it Murillo or Leandro? I think it was Murillo. ADCC 2017. I always forget who he triangles there, but that is a showcase of a piece of Craig Jones' game. This was really almost a return to an older game for Craig Jones, where you have a really heavy body lock passer in Rinat. Every time he would drop his head low, Craig Jones would go to that kind of modified rubber guard buggy choke position there. So it's the only reason why it's not a rubber guard. It's because we're calling it a buggy choke is because Craig Jones is basically looping his far side arm where his foot is underneath of the ankle and then pulling down. And it's really something that you see. It's the buggy choke position when you're in side control.
Yeah.
And sort of any choke that you're using when you're looping under your leg like that and pulling down. I think we're all, as a community, sort of calling that a buggy choke.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is technically, like you said, not really a buggy choke is typically done from side control, but that grip, the buggy choke is the only choke has a couple chokes that use that, but the major choke that has come to prominence that uses that grip to submit.
Yeah,
with.
exactly.
And Craig Jones uses it, and then I thought this match potentially was going to go to time. But Craig Jones, I think, is very clearly in the driver's seat.
He also tried to mother's milk him, and dude just was not having it.
Yeah,
which is
mother's milk, the top smother from
yeah,
out
and
with
it
the
was
chest.
just he didn't seem to give a shit about it. But would you expect him to? Like, he doesn't seem like the type. He's almost he seems like, number one, he's not going to tap to a buggy, because like, why would you tap to a buggy? Which is kind of
for the full guard, especially. It's just as long as you have pressure up, and your head's in the right position.
It's kind of my philosophy too. Yeah, because fuck
Rinat did a good job here when in the buggy choke from the guard of like, that's one of the chokes that if you freak out and try to posture up, everything slides forward, like your shoulders slide forward and you start to cross off the arteries, you start to go to sleep. But Rinat did a really good job of kind of flaring his elbows and keeping his head low enough where if you go higher in that choke, it actually makes it tighter, versus if you stay close to the body like that, it's very hard to actually pull it tight enough close, even with a super strong guy like Craig Jones, to actually choke them. So his defense here, from a technical perspective, was actually, I think, pretty good.
Yeah, he didn't get suckered into it. He didn't like drop his head. He kept his shoulders broad. You know what I mean, and didn't allow that space to be taken away.
Yeah.
And he just kind of weathered the storm and kept on coming.
But really, it was Craig. I mean, throughout the entire match, it was a Craig Jones match. It was very, I think, 12-minute matches.
Yeah.
There was this match got spicy with about a minute and a half left, where Craig Jones started throwing up the triangle attempts.
Wasn't he using just like really simple, like scissor sweeps too? Didn't he scissor sweep him like twice? He scissor sweeped him once. That's how he got to mount.
So I thought this was really interesting. The way Craig Jones plays,
it full guard?
He would. I'm not actually remember.
Is it the full guard where you put your butt to the side and you just kind of yank him over?
Yeah, but the way Craig Jones does it is he gets really, really far. Like he is really confident in that overhook that he had, and he's able to get far enough out in like a really odd way. And Rinat was posting down, and Craig Jones is so tall that he's able to actually bring him over from that position. I think that was really interesting, because I think that is more of like an attribute thing.
Yeah.
Where unless you're a taller, longer guy like Craig Jones with amazing hip mobility and like strength in your hips there, you're just probably not going to be able to get most people over from that position. But Craig Jones has amazing timing, and so he's able to kind of power Rinat over to get to top. But let's go to the funness of the weirdness and funness of this match. With like a minute and 20-something seconds left to go, Craig Jones locks up a triangle. The sequence is really nice. It's in a transition there from a guard.
He hits the dogfight. Like from your dogfight, and you have your underhook or your overhook. I think Craig had an overhook.
Yeah.
In dogfight position, and you just kind of like throw your legs up and grab your triangle.
I literally taught essentially this triangle like a week before to my students. Yeah, whereas we were doing other tech stuff from like knee shield half guard, where it's like if they post in that way that or try to fight the foot in the way that Rinat does here, your shin ends up on their forearm and you can fight their hand. You can basically swing your hips out exactly like Craig Jones does and get the triangle here. So the setup is like, it's a really common setup for someone pressuring into a guard, or like trying to re-square like Rinat is in this position into the guard. And then Craig Jones, being Craig Jones, gets the triangle, locks it up, starts to squeeze. And then the camera angle that they have, you can see in what I think, and people have not necessarily agreed with me, but there's, if you can see me in the video here, Rinat, like where his hand is trapped on Craig Jones's body, like lifts his fingers and kind of like very gently kind of adjusts his hand, and looks like he does a little like a Brazilian tap.
Yeah. A little tap, but not a real tap. But it might be a I'm going to sleep tap. I don't know what kind of tap it is.
It looked like a tap, though.
Yeah.
It looked like a very, very subtle tap. And Craig Jones, you see, as soon as he taps the chest, Craig Jones does that thing where...
And it might be a tap where you fall asleep while you're tapping.
Yeah, where it's closing in,
you
tap. But Craig Jones, you see, as soon as the tap happens, when you watch someone do a submission, and we watch a lot of jiu-jitsu, when you watch someone do a submission, there's like a level of pressure and like strain that they're putting in.
Yeah.
And when the tap happens, you'll see the body basically like open up. Really, and as soon as the tap happens, Craig opens up.
Yeah.
Let's go with the choke. And the referee like checks, and then the guy's like, Rinat's like, no, I didn't tap.
Yeah.
And then the referee's like, I guess you go again.
Yeah.
And then they reset him in the triangle. That is very deep, because again, Craig Jones, we've talked about how good of a triangle player he is.
You just allowed him to reset his triangle perfectly.
Yeah, but it was already reset. But it was already tapped once.
Yeah.
And then Craig Jones goes, okay, immediately. This is actually really cool.
Yeah.
Craig Jones sweeps him over he goes to the mounted triangle, but as Craig Jones is sweeping over, as soon as he gets to top, he does this thing where he like backs the back of his thigh and ass up into position. And for the mounted triangle actually gets finished way differently than a standard triangle from the guard. Like the way that you need to cut the angle is very foreign to a lot of people, where you essentially need to pin and pivot on your top side knee over so that you can come even more square into their body. But the mechanism for closing that triangle from mount it feels very, very differently because you have to slide your weight. And you can watch Craig Jones, as he comes to mount, make this weight shift slide, and he's squeezing the entire time, and immediately Rinat goes to sleep. Craig Jones he is now actually asleep, potentially again, and comes off.
He gets up and he just kind of flops.
Yeah, he gets up and he's obviously asleep, much like UFC 300.
Yeah.
And then you see Rinat like come to, and then decide to wrestle Craig Jones.
Yeah.
We were kind of you and I on the pre-show were wondering, was like, okay, so if you've watched a lot of MMA, occasionally when guys get choked unconscious,
when they wake up, they don't really know exactly.
Or they start
up.
fighting the ref, or they start grappling the ref, and it takes them a second to come to.
There's one match, and I don't know what, it's not from the United States, it's from another country, where the guy starts fighting the ref, and the ref knocks him out again. And I watched it, and I was like, holy shit, that's amazing.
Yeah, but it happens occasionally. So Rinat kind of does I think he's just screwing around. Or he plays it off like he's just screwing. Because he gets up, and then he immediately stands up, and he double legs Craig Jones, and he lifts him up into the wall. And Craig's like kind of playing around.
Yeah, but
and he does it again.
Yeah, they seem to be giggling as they're doing it, but I don't know if that's like the uncomfortable giggle, or if that's like the...
Is he trying to save face, but maybe that he didn't tap twice? It was definitely an odd finish to the match. But Craig Jones, again, bell to bell dominated. This was sort of a vintage Craig Jones match. It was a little slower. Again, we know Craig Jones doesn't have the cardio. He openly talks about just not training like he used to train. Like he is a guy that very much is open out. Like, my technique is going to carry me, and like I am working on technique and training. Like, he's in the sunset of his career. Yeah, I think he's very much come to terms with like, I'm not going to put the work in from the cardio perspective for these matches that I used to. Either I'm going to beat the guy technically, or like it'll be a rough match for me. And I kind of appreciate that he's open about that, not pretending like he's still in the prime.
If you're talking to the commentators are talking about Craig Jones eating, like, the day before the matches, eating a bucket of French fries.
Wouldn't surprise me.
An entire bucket of French fries.
When he did the Absolute, like, him and Gunnar Nelson both talk about like having beers and then realizing they're in the Absolute and going like, oh shit, and Gunnar Nelson having to go fight Jeff Monson in the Absolute after like a beer, because he was like, oh shit. And Craig Jones, when he had his Absolute run in 2017, I think has a similar story where he was like, I was out of the tournament, went and got a beer, and then realized that I'd signed up for the Absolute and I got selected. And I was like, oh shit, I gotta go. And then he goes, and guys talk about going to the Absolute with like almost no pressure and performing really, really well. I was going somewhere with this, Craig Jones eating a bucket, some guys get comfortable, and they perform really, really well. But Craig Jones, a very vintage performance. And it was great. I like watching Craig Jones do triangles. I think he has some really interesting technique. It was interesting to see him play from the buggy choke from the guard for kind of such a long period of time. I'm worried about his knees. But
his knees look fine. It wasn't like
he's also not yanking on him. He's not like pulling down into his knees.
He wasn't doing it the way the 10th Planet guys do, that their knees blow.
Like Boogie did it. We watched Boogie do it, where he like really leverages on the LCL and pulls down. Craig Jones is doing it really square, but he's opening it at the hip line.
Yeah, and it looks more like Craig was using his arms more. Like he was almost exhausting his arms more.
He's
than
holding himself into it. He's not holding you down with the leg, and that's really where you start to see a lot of guys have knee problems.
Almost holding himself up.
Yeah.
Like, rather than holding them down on top of you, he's holding them, he's almost completely up in the air.
Which is something you just can't do unless you have the attributes that Jones has. Yeah. Like, he's a very, very long-legged dude. Like, we've taken pictures
there's a picture of him and me, and his waist is, like, at my shoulders.
Yeah.
Like, he's all leg.
A little bit of exaggeration, but probably, like, mid-chest for you.
Mid-chest,
like, you are,
it's definitely a weird-looking photo. You don't realize how long the legs are until you look at me.
Yeah.
And I'm 5'2", so I'm not a tall human anyway.
He has some attributes that allow him to play like this, but it was neat. It was, again, I like seeing good Craig Jones matches like this, and again, I love that Pit Submission Pride of Combat keeps bringing him on because, man, and Craig even talked about it. He goes, look, man, you keep having matches in cool places. I'll be here.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. They usually use an
And
opportunity
it looks
to travel.
like it looks like they give him like pretty cool accommodations, except for the flood.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
That
yeah.
was the most random.
Craig's in. If you watch Craig Jones' story and videos this week,
Yeah.
it's like there was a flood in Abu
It wasn't
Dhabi.
a flood. It just started raining, and it hasn't stopped raining.
Well,
And
that's,
that was
so that's a flood.
Yeah,
That's-
flood.
And like the city is partially underwater, and it's him
Yeah.
and like a bunch of other people in the city just wading through water in like cars that are just abandoned because they're in the middle of a flood. It was a really neat, like wasn't neat is the right word for it, but very interesting collection of stories that Craig Jones put out.
He knew somebody like higher up.
Yeah, they rescued him to the palace.
Yeah,
It was like, all right, come get Craig Jones. So it was cool. Again, I have nothing else on this match. Do you want to move on to the next matches?
Yes, sure.
All right, let's. Which one you want to talk about?
Oh, let's go to the very pensive match of Kaynan Duarte and
Pouya Rahmani. So this match was very much like Sean Brady and Craig Jones, or Sean Bradley. Brady?
Brady.
At Fury.
Brady.
Sean Brady at Fury, where it was like a very tentative match where nothing happened. But this match was Duarte playing from the guard and Pouya Rahmani playing in Duarte's guard. Duarte not really being able to sweep, but not really getting out of position to sweep. And Pouya Rahmani kind of trying to pass, but not really getting in a position to really start and try passing. That was kind of the fucking match.
When Kaynan went to full guard, I thought we were gonna get something because I thought he was gonna like either
posture him down or
like shoulder crunch sweep or do something. But Rahmani's also a ginormous human, like a strong, ginormous human
with very good wrestling.
Yeah.
Too.
So I mean that can kind of create a problem, and it looked like Kaynan didn't really want to open up in order to really do anything. And that could just be that he does. I mean, if you think about IBJJF and a lot of stuff like that, is you can get away with as a bottom player.
They give it to the guard player. IBJJF historically, until a couple years ago,
playing that game,
gives it to the guard player.
And if you looked at it that way, you would have gave it to Kaynan, because Pouya would have gotten a bunch of penalties for stalling.
Inactivity. Yeah.
Yeah,
they
would have given him the stalling penalties. Yeah. They wouldn't have said anything to Kaynan. They would have let him do what he was doing because he was at least like trying to grab the arm. He was trying.
It was slow.
He was doing enough.
He was kind of working.
He was doing enough for on both standards to not be stalling.
Yeah. But barely. Barely. And even then, I think it wouldn't have surprised me, a different rule set, to have Duarte get a stalling call or two to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like two sequences in the match where something actually what I would term as like happened.
Yeah.
There was one where Duarte goes for a wrestle up, and then Pouya starts to try to take his back
and just throws him.
Yeah, and then they're back to the guard.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he literally threw him too. Like
Rahmani, strong fucking dude.
Like chucked him. And I was like, whoa, big boy.
It kind of seemed like during one other sequence, kind of was looking for the legs, which we've seen Rahmani get. We talked about his Big Dan match.
Yeah.
We've seen Rahmani get leg locked before, but it's hard to get to his legs, and it seemed like Kaynan didn't want to commit or was unable to commit enough to get Rahmani standing and coming up enough to even get to his legs. But yeah, that's kind of the match. It's a weird. I mean, Rahmani takes a decision, which I think it's in the rule set. It's scored like MMA. So your top player, if your top player is doing anything at all, which Rahmani was doing, he would try to counter Duarte when Duarte would do something.
Yeah.
But in your MMA style scoring that Karate Combat uses, Rahmani wins a decision here.
And he almost got his back. At one of the sequences where Kaynan went into the legs, he almost got his back.
Yeah,
but
and
then
almost like he went chest to chest for a second, and then Duarte kind of turned the corner, and that was it. There was never like hooks or anything.
No,
but it was almost a positional change in favor of Rahmani. Again, I think, like I said, I think the decision for Rahmani in the rule set is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It's a little odd, maybe in some other rule sets, but we're not in other rule sets. We're in Karate Combat, where it's like an MMA style scoring system. Yeah, it's odd. I don't really know where you go from a matchmaking perspective for this. Like, do you give? I think we talked about it last week. They were probably trying to set up the rematch between Duarte and Craig Jones.
Yeah.
Which you keep those. Craig seems to be happy competing in Karate Combat. Yeah. He's getting paid. Duarte, they bring in. I mean, Karate Combat is bringing in some pretty high level very good grapplers to
and
have
it
these
seems
matches.
like they're taking care of them while they're there. They seem to all be having fun, putting videos up.
Craig speaks highly of his experience at Karate Combat, and he speaks very negatively of his experiences on some other shows pretty vocally. And so I think if Craig was having a bad time, he's at the stage of his career where you would absolutely hear about that and he wouldn't be back.
Did you see the video of him picking somebody randomly up and trying to throw him off a building?
Yes. I think it was his buddy.
Yeah, I was
something.
like, dude, that is...
He was the pile driver him, and then he walks out the edge, you see the guy like start to freak out, and I was like, oh, that's really funny.
Because they were like
funny.
they did
They're on a skyscraper
weigh-ins
of some sort.
like on the top of a skyscraper, way up in the sky.
So
they had to get away from the water, so it's probably the best place.
I think they were setting up the rematch between Duarte and Craig Jones here. With Duarte losing this and Craig Jones winning this, do you give... I don't think Craig Jones really has an interest in Pouya Rahmani.
Yeah, but I mean, they could give... I mean, I think Craig Jones is going to take whoever they give him.
Yeah, but I
don't think he's the type to really care. But that's going to be a boring-ass match.
Yeah, because I feel
it's
like
not going to be a very
I feel like it's going to be a repeat of a couple of the matches we've seen with Craig Jones where guys... If you don't engage with Craig Jones, usually you get kind of slower matches like the match with Duarte and Pouya Rahmani, like the match with Sean Brady and Craig Jones. Like, we've seen those matches a couple times. Again, like the match with Craig Jones and Kaynan Duarte. Like that match where there's just not...
It's like 50,
not a lot
50 million
happening.
penalties. Or Craig almost won by penalty.
Yeah. I kind of want to see the Duarte match regardless of the result here. The Rahmani match, I'm not personally super interested in it because it wouldn't really tell me anything. I would love to see Rahmani versus a guy like Max Jimenez.
Yeah.
Like Max Jimenez, Victor Hugo, like both those guys have recent matches, Max Jimenez or Luke Griffith. Like guys they both brought on in a Karate Combat. Big Dan, like even had the rematch with Big Dan here. I think there are other matches or rematches I'd be interested in seeing Pouya Rahmani in. I think I would like to see Craig in different matches. Again, if they make the match, Craig wants the match, Pouya wants the match, absolutely see it. Just the dynamic of it, I think, will be I don't think it'll be super exciting. I don't think stylistically it will be super exciting, and that's my only concern about it. I don't think Duarte Jones would be super exciting, but that has ADCC final stakes in it, where I think it's an interesting rematch for that perspective. But regardless, so that was that match. Pouya Rahmani takes a very reasonable decision over Kaynan Duarte in a very slow, inactive match.
Yes.
Moving on to it was a really fun match. Zaid, I had it, and now I'm getting gun shy on the name.
Al-Katheri
versus Osama Almari. This was fun. This is a fun rematch. You said it in kind of your notes the best on our pre-show. This is really kind of a rematch.
Yeah.
That looked very much like their first match that they had in the gi.
Yeah.
Just in no-gi.
Yeah, it's a no-gi version of basically their match that was in the gi.
Yeah.
And in that match, the same result. We had Zaid winning by 2-2.
Was it points?
2 advantages.
Yeah,
it was 2-2 with advantages.
Yeah, so Karate Combat, there's no points in advantage.
So,
there's just
but it was
here.
it was a very very similar similar match, almost the same way that like Zaid had a couple attempts, submission attempts. He had that rolling armbar attempt.
That was a really good. He had a couple. Zaid had some really really good looks on some armbars here, and I really liked watching Almari's defense to some of these because the way that Zaid would enter from the armbar, almost like the old school. Rolling Judogatame from the back armbars that you see like Ronda hit in judo, like a very, very common judo armbar you see from a turtle position. You saw Zaid jumping into those on Osama, getting out and like rolling through and like never letting his arm get fully extended and always being able to make the angle and then come back into the guard and then enter back into the legs like he wanted. It was very clear that Zaid really wanted the top position, wanted the arms, and Osama Almari really wanted the legs. And we've seen how good Osama is in the legs. Like, go back and watch his match with Mikey Musumeci in 1FC. Like, Mikey Musumeci can't put him away with the legs, so has to take his back and choke him there. And like it is really nice to see another like really high level leg locker, but also Zaid here keeping the dynamism for I can go lower body and I can counter upper body was really really nice to see. It was again a fun rematch. I think Zaid takes I think it's a pretty clear win for Zaid. He just has better shots on, I think, 2 different arm bars. Yeah. One arm bar, I think, is the deciding factor.
And then there's a bolo at the end. An attempt at a bolo.
As always with the guys at this weight class.
With the littler gentlemen.
Yep. With actually, these guys are even a little smaller than me. But, yeah, as always with that, you see some nogi bolo attempts, which is good. We saw some nice inverted play from both players. But it was really high level match.
And it was a lot of action. There was a lot of fun. It was a fun, high-paced action.
Yeah,
that's
one thing I was really happy about. I was happy about the pace. Like both guys really, because sometimes with again the more traditional IBJJF, AJP, really IBJJF players, you can get much slower paced matches because people are kind of used to that.
Yeah.
This match was all 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Was end-to-end activity. Both guys were consistently working, position control and the pace. We didn't see as much wall work as I had kind of hoped for. There was some instances where both players were sort of into the wall, and we saw them both be grapplers.
They saw them kind of use the wall, but at the same time not use the wall to their advantage, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like the one time Zaid comes up into Osama's stands, with Osama having full guard, and so he kind of pushes Osama's face into the side to kind of stand up, posture up to break the guard, but then never breaks the guard. They sort of use it, but not enough to actually get anything done.
It's really funny. So I've been working with a fighter that we have. I just had a fight yesterday, and we've been doing a lot more wall work. And I haven't done any glove work or wall work in a couple of years. Like it's been a while.
Cages suck.
And it's been very funny the past 2 months or month and a half, really doing so much more wall work and back and glove work and stuff, and coming kind of back into that world. It made me remember. I'm like, oh yeah, if you haven't done this in a while, like I've been grappling for a while now.
Yeah.
If you haven't done wall work or cage work or glove work in a while, it's a whole different. It reminds me just how much the two sports are very, very different. Because in jiu-jitsu, there's no wall. You don't ever have to plan for the wall. We grapple and roll a ton, and you never have to deal with the wall.
Well, it depends on what gym you're in.
Yeah.
Because a lot of gyms, I think every gym that I roll at, we all have a wall. And there's always an understanding. My understanding is I use the wall. I don't care if you believe in that or not, but I'm going to use it.
Mine always depends on who I'm rolling with, but recently I've been really focusing much more on sport jiu-jitsu, where it's I'll pull people away from the wall, or I'll just avoid us from touching or getting hit into the wall. Yeah. But in training for this guy's fight, we've been using the wall more, and I've kind of forgotten, there's all these different techniques that I'm trying to pull back from 10 plus years ago of
you have to hook the leg. You have to push your back into it.
How do I push the wall? How do I use my head on the wall? And it's all of these kind of different techniques of coming back into. It's in pit submission. You can see some people that are able to use the wall and not use the wall.
But it's not it's an angle wall.
It's like a 45-degree wall.
Which is even weirder. You would have to create a 45-degree
I don't know of a single gym I have ever been at that has an angled pit wall.
You would have to create one.
Yeah. It's a very odd arena. That's part of the reason I love mixed martial arts, because you can have ring, cage, pit, wall. Mixed martial arts doesn't care really what configurations. You can have rope pit. We've seen fights in them. Ibombi is literally on an elevated stage. We see it happen, but it is interesting to see grapplers either use the wall and not use the wall. And my own perspective recently of I've kind of forgot somewhat how to use the wall because I just do it so infrequently. Takedowns on the wall or takedown defense off the wall is just very different. If you haven't used the wall in your training, try it occasionally, because you'll kind of forget if you haven't done it in years. Oh, right, this is a whole different collection of techniques that I have to re-drill so that I'm confident in them again. So it was just interesting in watching this match. These two guys were very clearly grapplers, and you could tell there wasn't a lot of emphasis on the wall work in their training environments, which is cool. All right, so that was pit submission 4. It was fun. The whole card is great. The main event is Luke Rockhold knocking out Joe Schilling, which is a fun match.
Yeah,
kind of what I expected.
He broke Luke Rockhold's nose.
Yeah, it's I like watching Schilling. I remember watching Schilling in Last Man Standing. Right after, not live, but right after that happened, and seeing Schilling in Glory and all those Bellator fights, back when he was a huge staple on Rogan and other shows like that. And then he kind of retired for a little bit and has come back, but also been watching Luke Rockhold since right around. You went to actually his fight in Strikeforce.
Yeah, right? I've seen him. Yeah. That was
back.
I'm trying to think what that was. I don't even remember what year that was.
07?
Yeah,
maybe not 07. Somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there
Yeah.
in New York at some point. Yeah. I'm a fan.
Yeah. So it was a fun match. Again, the card is up on YouTube. Again, I
Yeah.
think they're doing a phenomenal job. Go back and watch it. There are some fun fights.
He called out freaking the name just completely fell. The freaking karate guy from the UFC.
Stephen Thompson?
No, retired. Old.
GSP?
No, old. Going like old.
Old. Boss Rutan?
Asian, old. Older.
Yushin Okami?
No. Fuck. Like retired.
Kung Lee?
No. Not that old. Like.
Lyoto Machida?
Yes. That's who we call it.
I'll watch that. Watch the show of that.
I know. That's why I was literally just saying this because I know you like him. So you have to remember. You have to remember. Sometimes I say things because I know.
What will get Maine's brain in the right spot?
But
I'll watch the show of that match. Actually,
I know that's who he asked.
I want to see them both retire, but like
that's who he asked.
Lyoto had a rough run at the end there.
Dude, Luke Rockhold's had a rough end too.
Yoel Romero beat both of those gentlemen in ways that made me sad.
Yeah.
Like in the
Romero.
Yeah.
The
immortal Yoel Romero,
dude,
still fighting in PFL now.
I don't know how that works.
I don't either. How old is he actually? So that does it for Bits and Mission 4. It's on YouTube. Watch it. It was a lot of fun. Let's move on. What else do I have?
We have.
Let's talk about
Midwest finishers.
Midwest finishers. So we're just going to talk about the finals here for Midwest finishers. We had Layla Watkins win over Tisha Allo. By a really interesting heel hook to knee bar, a knee bar to heel hook transition here. Tisha Allo, not someone I'm familiar with before, but I was watching her game. She came out in a bright red singlet, which immediately makes me go, Freddie Vosgrove. But anyone that comes out in a singlet to do a grappling match, you're always like, okay, that is a bold choice. Typically someone to keep an eye on. Layla Watkins does a really good job. Throughout the entire tournament, we saw Watkins going into the legs. Like, she is a good leg locker.
She subbed every single person on her way there.
Yeah, and in her semifinal match, Layla Watkins got a really nice
straight ankle
variation on Nicole Matthews.
Yeah.
And you go back and watch the finish of that because you see Watkins kind of pummel her legs in. She has a really nice outside ankle lock grip. And then she steps over to the reap as she bellies down. You can see just the grip she has on Matthews. And Matthews is super tough.
Well, Matthews was trying for the toe.
The corkscrew lock.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that top side. It's not a steamer lock. It's what Michael Venom Page hit in Bellator all those years ago. It's that top side toe hold that you do with just the palms of your hands over top and corkscrew down. Nicole Matthews got a little fixated on that in that match. And she was like doing good, like pressing down the foot, but Watkins seems to have very, very flexible feet. And Matthews was able to.
Or just not care.
Matthews was never able to pin her elbow down far enough in order to like break the top of the foot there. And Watkins late in this match, off Matthews committing her hands, gets the belly to an ankle lock there. But in her finals match here with Tisha Allo, as Tisha is doing a running man escape out of another leg lock entry, Tisha Allo throws essentially the knee bar from the running man escape. So when you're all four and your knee is still there, you can belly up knee bar someone. And Tisha, instead of spinning out and continuing to run, she spins in, which is a great way to defend if you can clear and push away the person enough to clear your knee line. But Tisha isn't able to clear the knee line enough, and so Layla spins over, goes outside heel hook. She gets a loose bite on it, and then brings her hand over across on the top of the heel to get the leverage that she needs and bellies through. But it was a really nice combination sequence from Layla Watkins. Again, a woman that we haven't talked about, I think, super frequently on the show.
I think she's done a bunch of opens.
Yeah, I think we've seen her name before on the show.
I think I've seen her name through. She's a brown belt.
Yeah. She's good. Like the sequence that she hits here, both in her semifinals and her finals matches, are really, really impressive, thoughtful sequences with really good transitions from like a varying leg lock attempt versus some very women. Again, Nicole Matthews, we see her come up frequently, very hard to put away. So to put away both her and Tisha Allo, very, very impressive performance there for her to take the Midwest finishers. I think, was it 25? 35. It might have been 45.
No, it was 35
because
Nicole is smaller now.
Okay. Yep.
She's not.
Midwest Finishers 135 title. So again, that'll be fun to see her defend that. I'm excited to see Watkins on more stuff coming up. In the men's final match, we had Andrew DeGraff beating Julian Espinoza in overtime.
Yeah.
Andrew is now a 2-time finisher champion.
Yeah.
Which is really, really good to see.
Not finishers. Midwest
finishers. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I always go finishers.
This is men's 145.
Yeah, which again is a pretty active division of Midwest finishers, and even in the finisher series, like we've seen a lot of guys that have come through there for 45 and done really, really exciting stuff. We see Julian Espinoza and Andrew DeGraff, frequently in this tournament series. So awesome to see them in the finals. Again, it goes all 3 overtimes. Yeah, and then it goes into I always forget if it's fastest escape or ride time. I always forget what we're using now in these series, but Andrew DeGraff is able to win it on that. Again, very competitive match from both sides, and from both gentlemen. And
that entire card was on YouTube.
Yeah,
which is nice.
Flow now.
Yeah, which is nice because you can watch the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And it loads better.
Yeah.
Which, man, the loading on YouTube is so much better
than
the loading on Flow.
To break for a second, I watched the United States wrestling finals for the Olympics. Just talking about like how things are set up. They used Peacock, which is NBC, right?
My parents love that streaming service.
It's interesting. So anyway, they used that, and they used another, and I forget what the other one was. The other one was like USA Network or something like that. But what they did is they used Track to keep track of everybody. So if you went to Track, you could see when all the matches, like who was on what bracket and all that information. But the fun thing they did was they did 4 matches at a time. And you could watch all 4 at the same time, and then they had their names and their color, and everybody's singlet matched their color that their name was.
Oh my God, like a real professional level run tournament where it's easy to follow.
And once they got both their round, like either it was over or they did their 2 rounds and they raised a hand, they threw them off the mats and they got the next one in. That thing went so smoothly. And I'm trying to think if we saw anybody who does... Not really.
Pat Downey had an interesting match where he was winning and then he kind of gassed and then he
gassed
lost
and then he
late.
lost and then he was supposed to come back for the loser bracket.
And he didn't.
And he didn't show up, and it was really funny because people were on his Instagram like, "Hey, they're calling you at Mat 2." I was like, which was hilarious because you heard him call him like a million times.
On the broadcast itself.
But it was really nice. Like that platform was very user friendly in my opinion.
It's a real professional level multi-billion-dollar company.
And it was
that knows how
it
to
was one
broadcast these
view,
things.
so you can't. It's not the greatest in some different directions.
It's like jiu-jitsu, where you have the one camera you got, and if someone stands next to it, hey man.
But it was far enough away that you didn't really have the ref, and the refs in wrestling move all the time, so they're not just chilling.
Yeah, because that's what referees are supposed to do and move around.
So, but
I just in another tournament, I just did a scrimmage between our university clubs today, and I was like, man, I move a ton.
I constantly do. I circle. I circle the match over and over and over.
But you watch wrestling referees who are, I think, the default standard in combat sports.
Yeah.
Like, judo referees are...
Well, wrestling referees do all the crazy shit. They do, like, because they have to look for the tap. So, or not the tap.
The shoulders
down.
Yeah. You see them get the head down really low. And look like... Again, I always really like wrestling referees because generally speaking, they are very experienced.
And
they're into it. They're down for it. And they seem to treat every match like it's important, and generally speaking, they're very well trained. They know like you are a referee. They're also paid. Like they're paid pretty well to be a referee, and they don't make those guys pull 12-hour days. Like I just think that jiu-jitsu can learn a lot from wrestling referees because of just how well typically, and there's always issues with referees here and there. Those folks are trained, but I like that jiu-jitsu kind of has closer to refereeing than wrestling than it does in judo. Yeah. And I think IBJJF does a terrible job with their refs overall because there's a level of inactivity there for IBJJF refs. And I think IBJJF treats their athletes really poorly, and I would love to see kind of a page out of wrestling. I think ADCC has taken.
Yes,
ADCC has taken
I think so too.
A perspective where it's like, hey, the referee's involved in that match and like not interfering, but there to keep the action progressing as it is supposed to.
But it was very nice. It would be nice if more...
Burroughs lost.
Yeah, he did.
Which surprised me.
He also had a hissy fit on one of his earlier matches.
Interesting.
And
I didn't get a chance to see most of it.
He had a hissy fit against a guy who was actually a Penn State guy, and they were at Penn State, which created a crowd problem. The entire crowd kind of was up in arms. And he was something.
Yeah.
But he did lose. Yeah. He lost to Jason Knopf, right?
I believe that is correct. Yeah. Again, we don't cover wrestling a lot.
And then
on the
Jason
show.
Knopf lost to Dake.
I think so.
I think so.
I
could be messing that all up.
I wish I was more involved in wrestling, but wrestlers typically go into MMA and not go into jiu-jitsu, and so like it's why I don't cover judo as much anymore either. It's like because it's a very separate sport. We're seeing more wrestlers kind of come into ADCC, but it is still kind of very few and far between because they have other avenues that they can go to make their money, and the coaching avenues that transitioning sports late is a little less common for them. But it'll be fun. We have the Olympics, a couple months? August?
Yeah.
Something like that. So this is the U.S. qualifier for the Olympics. There were some really fun wrestling matches. I've seen a little bit of highlights here and there, but everyone who watched it, again, like you said, talked about how well run it was.
Yeah.
And I really wish, I like that more jiu-jitsu organizations are taking, like, we're seeing the sport modernize a bit when it comes to that.
I was actually correct.
Okay, so run through you have the finals?
Yeah. Well, I had that was session 1. So they did it in sessions so you do a bracket, and then once you get to finals, it's best 2 out of 3 for your finals match.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like.
For wrestling, it makes sense. For sub tournaments, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because like one of the Smith, the guy, I killed him. I beat him. Like I don't know. He's out now.
Yeah. So we have. I can just go through pictures. We had Helen Maroulis. She won her bracket, and she's like the first time, like 3-time, female wrestler to make the Olympics, because it's only been in the Olympics for 3 years or 3 cycles.
Yeah. 12
but
years.
I would go through them if I knew, but there was also so there was different weights, but then there were certain weights that they were going to get into the Olympics if they won. And there are other ones that because they won that, they would then have to go to this open second trials that was in Turkey, and then they would have to win it in Turkey.
I don't understand how wrestling bracketing works.
Yeah, there was only
but there's a very well-defined way that
there's only like certain divisions that went to that you were in the finals and you were going to go to
Paris. It was a qualifying, essentially.
Yeah, and then some of them didn't. And I don't know the reason behind that. I just know that I watched it and it was fun.
Yeah.
So, but it was definitely it was fun to watch.
Yeah, and it was put together well. Again,
it was put together very well.
More of that. So, anything else on wrestling?
No.
Okay.
But I am doing a Jason Knopf seminar soon, so that's going to be fun. Yeah.
Tell us how that. I'm curious. Tell me how that goes.
On PA, yeah.
So let's move on to the preview section of the show. Let's talk about BJJ Stars 12. We have a bunch of really fun super fight matchups, some changes to super fight matchups, and we have a medium heavyweight, which I always forget what that is. It's like because it's IBJJF medium heavyweight.
Medium heavyweight is.
86.
It's middle, and then it's medium heavy, right?
I think.
So middle is
just do what MMA does. Just women weight classes, or do what ADCC does. It's every 11 kilograms, unless you're women every 35.
Okay, so we're doing medium heavy in IBJJF, right?
Yes, that is correct. So this is a medium heavyweight tournament.
While
you look that up, I'll get the names.
194.
Yeah.
In the gi.
194
right?
in the gi.
In the gi. It's in the gi.
This is in the gi.
Yeah, because
all of the photos
are in the gi.
I love how in jiu-jitsu, when we're previewing stuff, that is 90% of how we figure it. Because it's never announced in the gi or no gi. It is literally just you look at the athlete pictures. Sometimes it is.
But sometimes it's not. And you never really know. But normally it's pictures.
Yeah, and so all the pictures of guys in the gi, you're like, it's probably a gi tournament.
And then all of a sudden there'll be like 1 or 2 not in the gi, and you're like, what the hell?
And you're like, is it a no gi? Is it not? I don't know. So this is a gi medium heavyweight tournament. We have Felipe Andrew, Azaki Bahens, Gustavo Batista, Gabriel Broad, Mauricio Oliveira, Leandro Lara, Francisco Lowe, and Anderson Ferreira. That is a great lineup. Now, BJJ Stars. We don't have a bracket. We're not gonna have a bracket. We're not really gonna preview this tournament hugely because we don't have a bracket. And it's kind of we're just sort of guessing. There's no outstanding front runner here. All of these guys have wins and losses.
And this is the one. This is the one where they bring the hat out.
I think this is the one where they bring the hat out.
And they put everybody's name in the hat, and then they pick who's gonna go against who. Right?
Which I kind of like. It's a baller way to do it.
BJJ Bet is the one where they give the lowest bracketed guys the option of who they want. Right?
Or the highest bracketed guys.
Is it the highest bracketed guys? I thought it was the lowest only because I remember somebody picked like the number 1. It was somebody that I didn't
Yeah.
expect to, and they were like a lower ranked guy, and they were like, "Nah, I want Kaynan
Because
Duarte."
I gotta beat
Like,
him to beat him.
yeah.
I want to beat him first.
Yeah.
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 I remember that. Yeah, we see that in fighting game tournaments.
Yeah.
Sometimes for certain.
So,
way they
but I
seed
think
them.
these guys are the hat. I think there's a hat, and they put all their names in a hat, and they pick it out.
Which,
So like,
for us, for previewing it, sucks.
I think it's cool.
But for the
I
show,
like
when you
it.
watch it live, you're like, who's gonna fight, and then you hear the matchup, and he picks it out of the hat, and you're like, that's super exciting. So
I
the
mean,
guys,
it could really. And it could really change how a bracket like this goes.
yeah, because you can get your 1 and 2 seed first round. It's
Yeah.
like, well, they're not in the finals.
Yeah.
Again, I like it for some. I like that we seed most tournaments.
Yeah.
But occasionally, I like the jiu-jitsu still kind of. I say this in the nicest way possible. Still kind of a shit show.
Yeah.
A little bit where it's
Nah,
still
I
kind of
like
like,
the
hey man,
shit show.
you fight whoever you fight. The hat decides, like the sorting
Yeah.
hat of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It's
Dude,
a lot
I
of
have
fun.
horrible luck. So if I went in the sorting hat, they would have picked out like the number
You're getting
one
Fionn
seed.
Davies.
Yeah,
first
like
round.
first round.
Oh,
Like,
cool.
yeah.
And second round is Brianna Stay Marie. Oh,
Yeah.
third round is cool.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, sorting hat
Yeah.
of jiu-jitsu.
So this will be fun. I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Do you have a pick here for of all the names
In the gi.
who you think is in the gi? Who you think is gonna win the tournament?
Felipe Andrew.
Felipe Andrew.
I go Felipe Andrew or Azaki Bahens. They're my two. I'm going to go with one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to go Felipe just because I think I like to watch him a lot more than I like watching Bahens, truthfully. But that's
I like
just me.
Bahens's guillotine game, but again, this is so weird because a lot of these guys, most of the field have
Went against
wins
other-
and losses against each other, and you can look tournament to tournament.
But then, like, if you put Anderson Ferreira or Fadeda on one side, and he could just massacre everyone.
Yeah.
Because he's
He
done.
had a really good run
Yeah.
at hands where he finished that bow and arrow with the leg behind.
Yeah.
Oh, was
mean,
that on Batista? Was that
Yeah.
against Batista?
Yeah,
I think.
so.
Yeah.
I think so. Like, he's real good. And then Francisco Lowe, he'll just jump a random triangle on you if you don't, like,
Yeah,
pay
he's very
attention.
quick. In first division, he's going to be very quick. I think he's a little undersized for some of these guys in
Yeah.
this division, but we see him go up in weight. He's another guy, kind of like Taza, that'll
Yeah.
kind of seem to bounce between a couple of different
Well,
weights.
and in the gi, you can get away with, like, going up a weight class, right?
Yeah.
Because you have that extra, like, that fabric to kind of hold you back.
We
and to
just
kind
saw him against Cade
Yeah.
on 1FC. What that was,
77 probably.
I think 1FC Cade
Or
is the...
Or is it 88?
Cade is the welterweight.
So 175. Like MMA?
No, Ty
welterweight?
is the welterweight champion. So it is 85 because 1FC
Yeah.
goes up a weight. And Cade is the lightweight champion, so he's 70.
Yeah, okay.
So that was 170. So Anderson Ferreira last week weighed in at 170, and he looked pretty sucked out to make
Yeah.
that weight. But again, I think that he's going to be on the lower end of the weight size here for these brackets. I'm going to go Felipe Andrew too. Watching him get upset in this tournament wouldn't surprise me, but man, I like his triangle game.
Yeah.
His ability, his flash sub game, kind of like Francisco Lowe, is exciting. But also, I want to see Anderson Ferreira. I want to see his judo.
Yeah.
Because he has just been launching guys in BJJ Stars, in IBJJF, and like again, BJJ Stars is the first thing that we saw Anderson Ferreira on.
Yeah.
We watched it live that one day at the house.
Yeah.
We brought some of the Grappling Ride team and we watched
Yeah.
BJJ Stars live, and it was a lot of fun. We brought some other people in the gym as well. It was a bunch of fun, and we saw like, who is this dude? And he is exciting. So again, I like seeing him back on this bracket. I'm gonna go gut pick Felipe Andrew, but it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him upset.
I also like Andrew's passing because he has really, really good passing, and I feel like he can get by a lot of people.
He's just he's a very well-rounded veteran game.
Yeah.
Doing a very long time at the highest level for a while now. And I will never forget that 2020 triangle he hit on Kaynan at the Europeans. And then he triangled Hulk later that year with the same triangle, like a slide-through guard triangle. He's got a really good flash game. Slowed down a little bit, but still, like, he is my front-runner pick, but he does have some wins and losses to some other folks in this bracket. But it'll be fun. So anything else on the medium heavyweight bracket here? We don't have a bracket, but any other thoughts on the tournament?
Nope, that's it.
Should be a lot of fun. Some newcomers we haven't seen before, or we haven't talked about much. Gabriel Broad, I think he's been on BJJ Stars before. Leandro Lara, we haven't talked about a ton, but we've seen him on the tournament before, so it is cool to see him here again. We have a matchup that I'm really excited about: Sam Nagai versus Miriam Maguire. I can always pronounce Miriam's last name.
McQueen.
It's
my Portuguese to English on my phone put it to machine, because I guess that must be the word for machine.
MAQUINE.
It acted like that was the word for machine because it translated his last name to machine.
This will be fun. I think this match will be close. Miriam is a very, very good gi player, but Nagai has been on a tear recently. Miriam is, I think, going to be long, and I think he's going to play a really, I'm going to use the word ornate gi game that I think he's going to try to slow Nagai down with, but both these guys will absolutely, in the matches, like turn up the heat and turn up the pace, and I think in a really interesting way. So I don't have big picks on this match, but I think the dynamics of this match will be interesting because both guys can both play technically, but will both kind of launch into really neat sequences. I think the guy, for me, plays the more exciting game, but that potentially can get him into trouble against Miriam, who's going to, I think, try to capitalize on the movement that the guy has. But I think this will be a close match. It should be very fun. Yeah. We have a lightweight championship match with Julia Alves versus Luisa Montero. Luisa Montero has looked very good recently. Alves, again, has also looked very good recently. Stylistically, I think we're probably going to see Montero play from the guard. Yeah. She's probably going to pull early. She's probably going to try to control. We're going to see some passing from Alves. Seeing Alves pass Montero would not surprise me. Yeah. I don't remember if these two have had a match. I think they have, and I don't remember it.
I can look.
But I think we're going to see Montero really leaning heavily into her guard game.
We're assuming everything's in the gi.
Yeah, I think BJJ Stars typically is a gi tournament. I think they've run some no-gi stuff, but BJJ Bet, I think, is the no-gi when they did both.
Oh, okay.
BJJ Stars is typically a tournament in Brazil, in Diabada, 27th of April in São Paulo.
Okay.
Typically a gi tournament.
Of course, they don't have her.
Yeah, BJJ here, they don't have her record because why would they? We have a featherweight championship match that was Ana Rodriguez versus Bia Basilio. But Bia Basilio has a match in 1FC coming up not this week, but the following week. Yeah. So 1FC has asked her to hey, we're going to bring you out for potentially a $50,000 fight. Can you not compete the week before? And so she has been taken out of that match. As a result, we are going to get, I don't have the name up anymore.
I don't see she's on the list of they have one against each other.
Okay.
At least from what Tapology says, because Tapology has the full.
Okay, has most of them.
Yeah.
We're going to see Anna Carolina Schmidt versus Ana Rodriguez. Yeah. So that is actually Bia Basilio's teammate. Yeah. Former world champion, 2019 world champion versus A-Rod. This should be fun. I actually really don't know how this match is going to go. A-Rod has been just killing it recently. Put on a really impressive performance at the Brazilian or the South American trials.
And at Pans.
And Pans.
Yeah.
So this, I think, will be a really fun match. Again, former world champion Anna Carolina Schmidt. Should be a fun match. I think very deserving of the featherweight champion. The featherweight championship title fight. We also have the oest of G's, Vitor Shaolin and Andrino Silva on this match. Shaolin, known for being Vitor Shaolin, the Shaolin Komora. Yeah. Pick all the other things that he pioneered.
Isn't he a ref on everything too?
Yes, he's a 1FC ref.
Yeah.
You've seen him. It's cool to see him. BJJ Stars, I think, is paying some guys because they get a lot of legend to come out and do a match, and it is always exciting. We also have Peter Frank.
I think the other thing is also they kind of understand and know, if you get someone who's older, I'm not saying he's super, give him somebody else who's also older. Don't be
match him up properly with another
Don't be
legend
Vitor Shaolin versus
Kaynan Duarte.
Yeah,
you're hey man, it's a cool match. I'll watch the match, but I'd much rather see Shaolin versus Adriano Silva.
Yeah, I think they match people masters versus masters, which is a really good
guys of status and stake and historic attribute in the community together. And again, I think they do a good job. You get a chance to see some of those veterans of the sport come back and have a really exciting match and showcase some of their older game in a modern tournament.
And that you can still do it.
Yeah, and get paid still. Yeah. We also have Peter Frank versus Celso Vinicius, this will be fun.
Yeah.
Celso What have they have his name spelled really weird here? Celso Vinicius. He hasn't competed since like 2021.
Yeah,
I think
he went against AJ Exarm.
Yeah, beat him.
Yeah.
I thought for some reason that was BJJ Stars. For some reason I think he's competed since then.
He's probably done like IBJJFs or something like that.
But it's not. We can't find it on the BJJ Heroes record. This should be fun. Peter Frank, we know him for having super blonde hair and jumping, flying triangles,
and
arm
doing
bars.
Everything. He does BJJ Bet. He does BJJ Stars.
He does IBJJF.
A lot of IBJJFs. He does everything you can imagine.
Really, really fun. Really exciting game.
Flies some crazy triangles at you.
Yeah.
Or not triangles, arm bars.
Yeah. He's got a really, really unique flying armbar game that is like one of the best in the world. Like he is known for the flying armbar. And he has some really neat setups for it. He has some really great hip movement for it.
I think he also has tendency to confuse you by his weird dancing that he does.
Yeah.
Because he'll just like randomly start dancing in the middle of a match and then throw a flying armbar at you.
Super unorthodox to compete against. But again, Celso is as veteran as they come. It'll be interesting to see kind of how Vinicius deals with that activity level of Peter Frank. I'm not going to put anything by either one of them. Having this go either way wouldn't surprise me. Vinicius definitely has the better credential record, old school, but we see Peter Frank much more frequently in in those brackets. We also have Igor Rodriguez versus Pedro Veras. We have Sabrina Godrin versus Larissa Martins, and we have Hugo Souza versus Jefferson Santos. So that's BJJ Stars 12 happening.
On Flow.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that does it for the preview section. We also have this tonight. We are recording the show on Sunday, April 21st. So at 9 p.m., so in a couple hours here at this time, the PGF, not the finals.
No, it's the PGFs. It's the pick'em tonight.
Yeah.
They do the draft where they pick who they want on their teams.
Right. So I think next week we'll probably be recapping, because it's like what we think it is. It's like a full week-long tournament event, and they're going to live stream it on YouTube, and then the finals, I think,
is
are
the
on Fight Pass.
They're on the 26th.
Yeah.
Which is next Friday?
Friday, I think, or Saturday.
Yeah. So we'll try to, Friday.
Okay.
So we'll try to,
we'll cover that this following week.
We'll cover that, the following
We really have to cover the entire tournament. So probably next week will be BJ Stars and PGF as well. So that'll be next week's show. But right now, it hasn't happened. We haven't seen the pick'em.
Yeah.
All the Instagram is all the guys flying out to Vegas. So we've seen like everyone's ending up there.
Yeah.
But we previewed that kind of in more depth last week. It happens for us in a couple hours. By the time you hear the show, it will have already happened.
Yeah.
So
and I have to be away, so we couldn't do this after that.
Yeah. We wanted to get the show done and recorded, and so that's just how the scheduling for it works. Enough years, we got to move stuff around. So that's all I got. You got anything fun planned for the week, or you travel?
I am going to a Marcelo Garcia seminar on Saturday.
That will be fun.
Yeah, so that'll be fun.
Mm-hmm. I have something really important next week, and I'm forgetting what I'm just super busy with work and
Dungeons and Dragons on Sunday.
That's what it is.
We get to play
playing D&D with the Grappling Rewind crew.
Yes, our crew gets together.
There's something really important happening on the 27th.
Our crew gets together and plays Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep,
eats.
We eat. We get fat.
We need to not eat the crap food and then try to roll afterwards, because that was a bad experience the last time.
We run, my wife and I run the open mat at our gym on Sunday evenings.
Yeah.
And the Grappling Rewind crew usually meets like midday Sunday, and we go right up to the open mat.
Yeah.
So we've been eating and playing D&D and eating garbage for like past 4 or 5 hours.
And then we try to roll,
and then we immediately go to open mat.
Really
It's half of us that decide to go to open mat after that, feeling like utter trash. Like you were having a rough time.
Yeah, my stomach was not happy.
You rolled a couple rounds and you were like, I'm done.
Yeah, I can't deal with this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and now the weather's nice. That thing is busy and packed, and so it's just like you're getting a ton of rounds in a hot gym in summer here in Maryland.
Yeah,
and
y'all make me put on a gi.
We put on a gi.
Yeah,
because it's mostly we do no gi too, but it's mostly a gi open mat. But yeah, that's next week. So I am amped for that. I'm excited. I'm learning D&D very slowly, but having a great
all of
time.
Us, we have fun.
Yeah, it's
we
a
bend
great
the rules
time.
A little bit.
We play the game like I would like to have it played, and Josh, the DM of Grappling Rewind, does a great job DMing it. It's just we have a great team that we get together on the Grappling Rewind, and it's awesome to be able to do things together that are not just the show.
Yeah.
So I got nothing else planned. I think
I think that's all I got.
As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, my co-host,
Miranda.
and we are the Grappling Miranda. So the mat, where it is, stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.